Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Joining me today is Ms. CJ Hero. Hello, CJ. Good evening to you.
Hello, Alma, and good evening to everyone watching the news tonight. Here are the headlines.
Despite his desire to remain friends with China, President Duterte on Monday said he will send gray ships to the West Philippine Sea should China start drilling for oil in the disputed territory.
In a pre-recorded public address, Duterte said he will state the Philippines' territorial claim by sending Navy ships in the disputed waters. And now, at least 49 passengers on a flight from New Delhi to Hong Kong have tested positive for coronavirus, according to authorities, as the financial hub introduced an emergency ban on all flights from India in a crackdown over a new wave of cases.
I think this report should alarm us all.
And UN Secretary General said the world is running out of time to tackle climate change.
He said it. And Russia's space agency said Tuesday it hoped to launch its own orbital station in 2025 as Moscow considers withdrawing from the International Space Station program to go at it alone.
First, here in the Philippines, despite his desire to remain friends with China, President Duterte on Monday said he will send gray ships to the West Philippine Sea should China start drilling for oil in the disputed territory. In a pre-recorded public address, the president said he will state the Philippines' territorial claim by sending Navy ships in the West Philippine Sea. Take a look.
Addressing myself to the Chinese government. We want to remain friends. We want to share whatever it is. Sinabi ko naman sa inyo sa Chinese government, I'm not so much interested now in fishing. I don't think there's enough fish really to worry about. But when we start to mine, when we start to get whatever it is in the bowels of the China Sea sa ating oil, dyan na ako. Then but by that time, I will send my ships there. I will send my gray ships there to state a claim. Yan masiguro ninyo. Pag kinuha na yung oil, kung anong mga nickel dyan, and precious stones, that would be the time, because that is the time that we should act on it. You know the cost of war. And if we go there, and really to find out and to assert jurisdiction, he said it would be bloody. It would result in a violence that we cannot maybe win. Ang problema nito, we have always, sided with America in so many issues, including this one. Pero kung sabihin mo that America will go to war because of the Philippine Sea, tapos tayo ang mag-umpisa. Ang sa ano doon that alam mo doon sa Mutual Defense Treaty, I don't know if I'm right, only if we are being attacked and assaulted.
Yes.
It is not, does not include a war that is initiated by us.
Yes.
China seized control of the Scarborough Shoal in a controversial standoff wherein China blocked the access of Filipino fishermen in the area in 2012, prompting Manila to bring the case before the international arbitration. On July 12, 2016, the Philippines won the arbitration case it lodged against China after the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, Netherlands, invalidated Beijing's 9-line claim. Over the contested waters, China refused to acknowledge that arbitral ruling. The president has opted to pursue a bilateral approach to address the maritime row with China. Since he assumed office in 2016, the president admitted that there's no way that the country can reclaim the West Philippine Sea without any bloodshed.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and his predecessor Ban Ki-moon on Monday urged governments in Southeast Asia to push to end the crisis in Myanmar. The EU also announced sanctions on 10 Myanmar junta officials and 2 conglomerates linked to the military. These and more from our EBC correspondent Gila Pablo, who's following the developments from Thailand. Gila, tell us more.
Yes, CJ, good evening. Again, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and his predecessor Ban Ki-moon on Monday urged governments in Southeast Asia to push to end the crisis in Myanmar during a video conference of Security Council leaders. Let's watch this.
Today, ASEAN's role is more crucial than ever as the region faces an urgent crisis in Myanmar. I've repeatedly called on the international community to work collectively and through bilateral channels to help bring an end to the violence and the repression by the military. United Nations cooperation with ASEAN in this regard is vital. The situation requires a robust international response grounded on a unified regional effort. I urge regional actors to leverage their influence to prevent further deterioration and ultimately find a peaceful way out of this catastrophe.
Both the United Nations and its regional partners now have a fleeting window to cooperate through strong action to halt the ongoing atrocities in Myanmar and prevent the further escalation of violence. I condemn the brutal use of lethal forces against civilians and the detention of State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi and the President Win Mint, as well as thousands of protesters. The worsening situation in Myanmar represents a pivotal moment to showcase the utility of cooperation between the UN and its regional partners in maintaining peace and security and saving human lives.
On ASEAN's part, we have called on all parties concerned to seek a peaceful solution and pursue constructive dialogue, reconciliation, and the return to normalcy in accordance with the will and interests of the people of Myanmar. ASEAN is ready to assist Myanmar, including through the good offices of the Chair of ASEAN and the Secretary General of ASEAN, in a positive, peaceful, and constructive manner.
Junta leader Min Aung Hlaing is expected to join the ASEAN summit, his first official overseas trip since the February coup that ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. The army has moved to quell mass protests against its rule, killing at least 730 people according to a local monitoring group. In another development, the EU announced sanctions on 10 Myanmar junta officials and 2 conglomerates linked to the military over the coup and bloody crackdown on protesters in their country. Announcing the sanctions on officials, EU member states said the individuals are all responsible for undermining democracy and the rule of law in Myanmar and for repressive decisions and serious human rights violations. The 2 firms hit with asset freezes and visa bans. Myanmar Economic Holdings Public Company Limited, MEHL, and Myanmar Economic Corporation Limited, or MEC, were owned and controlled by the Myanmar Armed Forces, or Tatmadaw, and provide revenue for it. The companies dominate sectors including trading, alcohol, cigarettes, and consumer goods. EU diplomats said the officials targeted are mostly members of the ruling State Administration Council, seen as responsible for undermining the democracy in the Southeast Asian nation. The military has ramped up its attempts to crush dissent following mass demonstrations against its ousting of civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi, with at least 737 civilians killed and the press increasingly under attack. In fact, today, Japan is urging Myanmar authorities to release a Japanese journalist in custody at a Yangon prison, one of at least 65 reporters arrested during the junta's crackdown on anti-coup protests. Freelance reporter Yuki Kitazumi was detained on Sunday, and the Japanese embassy spokesman confirmed that he was transferred overnight from a police watch house to the insane prison. The press has been caught in the junta's crackdown as the military attempts to tighten control over the flow of information, throttling internet access and revoking the licenses of 5 local media outlets. At least 34 journalists and photographers remain in custody across Myanmar, according to monitoring group reporting ASEAN. Back to you, CJ.
Thank you so much, Gila, for your updates coming out of Thailand. Please do stay safe over there and keep us posted on whatever is going to be happening over there.
Same to you, CJ. Again, this is Gila Pablo, your ASEAN correspondent, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Gila. Meanwhile, the Swiss are celebrating as they see some semblance of normality due to the loosening of some COVID-19 restrictions, despite a reported fragile situation, as the authorities say. Here's Mayan Glosser joining us live from Geneva, Switzerland. Hello, Mayan.
Hi, Alma. Yes, you're right. So the Swiss hit the dining tables and we're back pumping iron at the gym as the country reopened outdoor cafes and indoor gyms despite rising COVID cases. Switzerland eased anti-COVID restrictions on Monday, notably reopening cinemas, sport halls, and cafe and restaurant patios, along with several large-scale vaccination centers in cities like Lausanne and Geneva. At the weightlifting club, face masks do not need to be worn if gym goers keep 1.5 meters apart, but they are required to do it in the changing rooms. Even if club members have been out exercises on the shores of Lake Geneva. Nearby cafes reopened their outdoor tables after months of waiting. Daily case rates here are roughly the same as in neighbors like Germany and Italy, though lower than the European Union average and half the rate in France. The Swiss health minister here, Alain Berset, said that a strategy of slowly lifting restrictions in recent months had allowed the country to maintain control over the pandemic. Meanwhile, in another development, the German manufacturer has submitted an application for the authorization of its COVID-19 vaccine, Switzerland's Drug Surveillance Agency, Swissmedic, announced. The vaccine is now under rolling review, which means Swissmedic is evaluating all the scientific data as soon as it becomes available without having to await the final results of the clinical trials. CureVac's technology, mRNA, is similar to that of Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech vaccines currently used in Switzerland, and it is also administered in 2 doses. Also today, Switzerland is speeding up the creation of the vaccine passport. The Federal Office of Public Health, or FOPH, said it is working out this week the form that the future vaccination certificate should take so that it is recognized at Swiss and international level. The Parliament already established the legal basis for the vaccination certificate during its spring session in March. And so far, around 50 options have been proposed to the Federal Council. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, man, for your updates there in Switzerland. Looking forward to more updates. Keep safe always. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me, Alma. Same for you. I'm Man Glauser, reporting from the Geneva, Switzerland Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, Tokyo and Osaka are seeking new emergency as infections rise just 3 months before the country hosts the Olympics. We have Dennis Liu reporting live from Japan. Dennis, tell us more.
Yes, CJ, Japan's third most populated region, Osaka Prefecture, had asked the central government to impose a state of emergency over the coronavirus as infections rise just 3 months before the country hosts the Olympics. Osaka Prefecture only lifted the state of emergency 2 months ago, and restrictions are expected to be tougher this time, possibly involving store and shopping mall closures. Tokyo and several other areas are expected to follow suit. Hoping to avoid the crisis now facing Osaka's healthcare system, officials are looking to increase the number of hospital beds available for COVID-19 patients, as the record-breaking surge has pushed its healthcare system beyond capacity. Governor Hirofumi Yoshimura said he had already told the minister overseeing the coronavirus response, Yasutoshi Nishimura, that a state of emergency was needed as measures taken so far are not enough. CJ, Osaka is already under virus restrictions that mostly call for restaurants and bars to close by 8 p.m. and urge residents to avoid unnecessary outings. Those measures prompted the region to bar the Olympic torch relay from public roads, with the flame instead being carried by torch bearers on a closed track inside the park without spectators. According to local media, Tokyo also plans to request the government declare a state of emergency this week. Japan declared a virus state of emergency in early January for several areas, lifting it on March 1st in Osaka and 3 weeks later in Tokyo. But infections have ticked back up, driven by more infectious variants, and vaccinations are moving slowly. Only the Pfizer vaccine has been approved, and so far it is being given only to medical workers and the elderly. CJ, back to you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for your updates there in Japan. Please do stay safe and let us know what happens on the plans with the Olympics happening there very, very soon.
Yes, CJ, thank you very much. Reporting live from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Now from Japan, we go over to Thailand, where the closure of reported infected markets will be extended for another week for disinfection of its premises. Is this right? Esther Odanga joins us live from Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Good evening, Alma, CJ, and to all our viewers. Yes, Alma, you are right. The Communicable Disease Committee on Tuesday extended the closure of the province central farmers market for 7 more days until next Tuesday. They are going to do more disinfection in these areas. The market in Pranakhon-Si, Ayutthaya district was closed on Saturday after at least 17 people at a barbecued shrimp restaurant were tested for the coronavirus. The farmers market covers about 10 rai on the Bangkok-bound side of Highway 32 in Tambon Hantra of Pranakhon-Si, Ayutthaya district. In another development, the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration said COVID-19 cases linked to bars, pubs, or clubs have spread in 71 provinces so far this month. CCSA spokesman Tawisil Wisanuyotin said on Tuesday there were 6,020 cases to date in April linked to entertainment venues. In other provinces, cases linked to night spots comprise 25% of all their COVID-19 cases this month. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha said Thailand is waiting for price quotes from US-based Pfizer Incorporated before the country can buy 5 to 10 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to be shipped from July to December this year. He said the National Vaccine Institute had been in talks to make a purchase and was waiting for the price quotes and conditions. The Prime Minister said another 500,000 doses of Sinovac Biotech vaccine would likely arrive this weekend, and another 1 million were expected in May. In June, he said 4 to 6 million doses of locally produced AstraZeneca vaccine will be available. More will be shipped in the following months until the total reaches 61 million doses by the end of the year. To date, the country took delivery of more than 2 million doses. According to Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration data, 666,210 shots were administered as of Tuesday. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Esther, for your update there in Thailand. Looking forward to more updates as we follow this developing pandemic situation around the world. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alma. Reporting live from Thailand, this is Esther Adanga. We live in interesting times.
And now from Thailand, let's get the latest coronavirus situation in Bahrain. We have Clem or Haleza or Jaliza joining us there. Clem, tell us more, please.
Yes, CJ. With regard to our coronavirus situation here, CJ, the Bahrain Health Ministry has reported 997 new cases of the COVID-19 coronavirus, along with 1,075 recoveries. Of the new cases, 361 were among expatriate workers, 581 were contacts of active cases, and 55 were travel-related. 6 new deaths were reported. The death toll stands at 594. Meanwhile, Bahrain's Ministry of Justice, Islamic Affairs and Endowments has closed 4 mosques and a community center in the capital Manama Muharraq and southern governorates for 1 week for failing to comply with the precautionary measures and the established health protocols, putting worshippers' health at risk. The decision was taken in view of the laxity of those in charge of the mosques in implementing required precautionary measures, especially those related to examining the worshippers' vaccination certificates and keeping a safe distance between worshippers. Meanwhile, our contact tracing app here, the Be Aware Bahrain app, which aims to combat the COVID-19 virus, has added a feature that allows for the photos of vaccinated citizens and residents to be displayed, the information an e-government authority announced. Offered in cooperation with the Ministry of Health, the new feature aims to help authorities and businesses to quickly identify the app's users and their vaccination statuses. Establishments in the kingdom will be able to ensure that individuals entering their premises are vaccinated by matching their faces to the photos on the application. Back to you, CJ.
Thank you so much, Clem. That is a very nice update on the contact tracing app that you have there in Bahrain. Please do stay safe and tell us more if there are any more developments there.
Yes, absolutely, CJ. Thank you so much. And this is Clem or Haliza reporting from Manama, Bahrain, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Clem. At least 49 passengers on a flight from New Delhi to Hong Kong have tested positive for coronavirus, according to authorities, as the financial hub introduced an emergency ban on all flights from India in a crackdown over a new wave of cases. Now, all of the passengers who tested positive flew into Hong Kong on a flight run by Indian operator Vistara on April 4. The positive tests are significant as Hong Kong is regularly recording fewer daily cases than the total detected on the flight since it brought a 4th wave under control in January. Authorities imposed a 2-week ban on all flights from India, Pakistan, and the Philippines from Monday, categorizing the countries as extremely high risk after detecting the N501Y mutant COVID strain for the first time. India is battling skyrocketing infections, with hospitals running out of beds and the government forced to reimpose economically painful restrictions. Its capital, New Delhi, went into lockdown from Monday night, as officials are now scrambling to get surging cases under control.
Now, a new double mutant COVID-19 strain first discovered in India, named B1617, appears to be the main driving force behind a systemic increase in new virus cases in the country, according to Gautam Menon, a professor and researcher on models of infectious diseases over there. The World Health Organization and governments around the world are monitoring its behavior as concern grows over the new variant.
We've seen a systematic increase in cases across India, more or less taking off at the same time, suggesting that what might be happening is that something that is more transmissible between people is very rapidly moving through the population of people who are yet to contract the infection and therefore spreading faster. I think we can be a lot more sure now than we were a few weeks ago that it's a double mutant that is driving this very sudden spike in cases. Right now, it's a variant of interest. Whether it should be upgraded to a variant of concern is a decision that the WHO will have to take. And certainly many governments across the world are interested in precisely this. And there's always a concern with new variants that seem to be more transmissible. That are they different in some way that might affect, for example, mortality or the infection fatality ratios associated with that variant. And that's something that we need to settle. And I assume that this decision regarding its importance will be made in the next few days. So the only long-term solution to COVID-19 is to vaccinate as many people as possible.
Officially, almost 180,000 Indians have died from coronavirus, 15,000 of them just this month, although some believe the real number may be higher. Social media and newspaper reports have been flooded with horrifying images of row upon row of burning pyres and crematoriums unable to cope. India locked down its capital, New Delhi, for a week beginning Monday night, seeking to control a raging coronavirus outbreak. India is still facing skyrocketing infections, with hospitals running out of beds and the government forced to reimpose economically painful restrictions. The Delhi lockdown came after the vast nation of 1.3 billion reported a record high of 273,810 infections on Monday, the fifth consecutive day, topping 200,000 cases. India has the world's second highest caseload, with more than 15 million known infections.
In other news, more than 260 non-governmental organizations signed an open letter today urging governments to donate $5.5 billion to prevent famine from reaching 34 million people this year. Now, the sum was called for by the United Nations World Food Program, or WFP, and Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, in March to swiftly scale up action to avert famine. The NGO said donations so far this year had been a mere fraction of what was required to prevent situations from worsening in hunger spots around the world. The letter said, quote, in Yemen, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Burkina Faso, Democratic Republic of Congo, Honduras, Venezuela, Nigeria, Haiti, Central African Republic, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Sudan, and beyond, we help people who are doing all they can to simply get through one more day, unquote. The WFP and FAO, called issued last month, sought to avert famine through measures including humanitarian food assistance and cash transfers. They also said the number of people experiencing acute food insecurity had remained persistently above 100 million over the previous 4 years. And the news continues here on Eagle News. CJ and I will be back right after this short break.
This This portion is brought to you by Canriv Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel, hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation, and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. 2021 must be the year of action for protecting people against the disastrous effects of climate change. That according to the United Nations on Monday, ahead of a crucial U.S.-convened summit. Time is fast running out to tackle the climate crisis. The UN warned, with the COVID-19 pandemic having failed to put the brakes on relentless climate change. Watch this.
The data in this report should alarm us all. 2020 was 1.2 degrees Celsius hotter than pre-industrial times. We are getting dangerously close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit that was set by the scientific community. We are on the verge of the abyss. Climate disruption is here. I urge everyone to take the message of this report to heart. Let us all commit to act to stabilize our climate and to end our war on nature. Now, our challenge is clear. To avert the worst impacts of climate change, science tells us that we must limit global temperature rise to within 1.5 degrees of the pre-industrial baseline. That means reducing global greenhouse gas emissions by 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, and reaching net zero emissions by 2050.
First of all, here are some key findings of the report. Last decade has been the warmest decade since 1850s, and last year was among the 3 warmest years that we.
The report said concentrations of the major greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, continued to increase despite the temporary reduction in emissions in 2020 related to the COVID-19 pandemic, which shredded economies. Statistics showed that 2020 was one of the 3 warmest years on record. The past 6 years, including 2020, have been the 6th warmest on record. Temperatures reached 38 degrees Celsius at Verkhoyansk in Russia on June 20, the highest recorded temperature north of the Arctic Circle. The report said sea level rise was accelerating while ocean heat storage and acidification is increasing, diminishing the ocean's capacity to moderate climate change. During 2020, the unprecedented number of 30 named Atlantic storms led to at least 400 fatalities and cost $41 billion in damages. Extreme heat waves, severe droughts, and wildfires also led to tens of billions of dollars in economic losses and many deaths.
Meanwhile, the United States will press all nations to reduce reliance on coal. That according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday in an implicit challenge to China as he vowed greater U.S. leadership. Let's listen in.
It's difficult to imagine the United States winning the long-term strategic competition with China if we cannot lead the renewable energy revolution. Right now, we're falling behind. China is the largest producer and exporter of solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, electric vehicles. If America fails to lead the world on addressing the climate crisis, we won't have much of a world left. If we succeed, we'll capitalize on the greatest opportunity to create quality jobs in generations. We'll build a more equitable, healthy, and sustainable society, and we'll protect this magnificent planet. Coming up short will have major repercussions for our national security. Pick a security challenge that affects the United States. Climate change is likely to make it worse. Climate change exacerbates existing conflicts and increases the chances of new ones, particularly in countries where governments are weak and resources are scarce.
President Biden has proposed a massive $2 trillion infrastructure package that includes a major transition toward green energy. He's also expected to announce a more ambitious U.S. target on reducing carbon emissions by 2030 ahead of the summit. Blinken also tied the impact of climate change to migration from Central America, an increasingly fraught issue for Biden, and greater competition in the Arctic as well as ice melts and waterways open. Blinken pointed to the increased activity of China and especially Russia in the Arctic.
In other news, New Zealand authorities revealed an Auckland airport worker had tested positive for COVID-19 Tuesday, although Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said it would not affect a newly opened travel bubble with Australia. Watch this.
This was someone who was vaccinated and fully vaccinated quite early on in the campaign. This is also someone who is part of routine testing. So they were last tested on the 12th and then the 19th, so regular testing. And it was their most recent test in which this case has been picked up. So you can see those protocols there working as we would intend. When we opened on both sides, we of course knew that we would continue to have cases connected to our border. In fact, when we announced the date for opening the Trans-Tasman bubble, Queensland was dealing with cases linked to its border. So we accept that's going to be part of our journey together. I think Australia accepts that. And for both sides, we're always looking for clear connection to the border, in this case there.
Confirmation the cleaner at New Zealand's largest airport had contracted the virus came barely 24 hours after the transport hub hosted joyful scenes as families reunited following the launch of the quarantine-free bubble. Ardern said the cleaner worked on planes arriving from red zone countries deemed high risk, not Australia, which, like New Zealand, has largely contained the virus. She said both Australia and New Zealand expected to handle border cases and had systems in place to do that without closing the long-awaited travel bubble. In Australia, Health Minister Greg Hunt said the government had full confidence in New Zealand's ability to contain small outbreaks of COVID-19. The bubble, which followed months of negotiations between the largely coronavirus-free neighbors, allowed their borders to reopen to each other after almost 400 days. It means that for the first time since COVID-19 closed borders worldwide, passengers can fly between Australia and New Zealand without undergoing mandatory quarantine on arrival.
Meanwhile, the Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, said Moderna will start its vaccine rollout in the country by mid-June with the delivery of an initial 200,000 doses. While the first tranche of delivery is small, Ambassador Romualdez assured that the bulk will start coming in on the third quarter of this year. Let's listen in.
Salamat, Secretary. Well, one thing for sure,
wala atang volume, no?
Yung bakuna natin in order, yung Moderna. Kinonfirm sa akin ng Moderna that they will start delivery starting June 15.
Wala atang volume.
That is the target date. And I think that they're quite confident that they'll be able to start rolling in the vaccines or the delivery of our vaccines starting June 15. And then it will start increasing as the succeeding months, July, August, September, up to the end of the year. They will complete the 20 million before the end of the year.
Sabi niyo po 20 million yung Moderna, pero yung ano po yung expected na first tranche na darating po sa atin? ng Moderna?
Medyo maliit lang kasi talagang inano lang nila yan. They were able to just get some vaccines that were available. Ito kasi galing sa Europe ito, hindi galing dito sa Amerika. So we were able to secure something like close to 200,000 ng Moderna na mauuna dyan sometime around middle of June. Pero as I said, yung pinakamalaki starting July, August, September, palaki na yan. Now the other good news
Now, in other news, the U.S. government said Monday it would make COVID vaccines available to all adults in the country from May 1st in a bid to beat back infections. But with President Joe Biden's administration ramping up shots, it made all its over 18s eligible for vaccination beginning Monday. Watch this.
I want to recognize that we remain in a complicated stage. On the one hand, more people in the United States are being vaccinated every single day at an accelerated pace. On the other hand, cases and hospitalizations are increasing in some areas of the country, and cases among younger people who have not yet been vaccinated are also increasing. One of the most important things we can do to get back to doing the things we love is to get vaccinated. I am so thrilled that today all people age 16 and up are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine, a tremendous step forward in our efforts to end this pandemic.
That every time and every day you get more and more people vaccinated, sooner or later, hopefully sooner, that level of infection will get lower and lower. And when it does, it becomes easier and easier to get back to some degree of normality.
The United States remains the hardest hit nation with more deaths and known infections than anywhere else in the world. The United States also passed a major vaccine milestone Sunday with roughly 130 million Americans, or half its adult population, receiving at least one dose.
In other news, two U.S. transportation regulators said Monday they will investigate a fatal car crash involving a Tesla that apparently had no one behind the wheel. Now, police said the vehicle was speeding when it hit a tree late Saturday night in Spring, Texas, near Houston. It caught fire, destroying the car entirely and killing two men. Harris County Police official Mark Herman told local media the initial investigation found no one was in the driver's seat of the vehicle. One of the victims was discovered in the passenger chair and the other in the back seat. The National Highway Safety Administration said it immediately launched a special crash investigation team to investigate it. Tesla warns the driver assistance system's autopilot and full self-driving capability don't make the vehicles autonomous, and that active supervision is still required. Elon Musk, however, regularly praises advances made by his company in self-driving technology.
U.S. plane builder Boeing said Tuesday that it had sold 15 of its troubled 737 MAX jets to Dubai Aerospace Enterprise, a leasing company, for an undisclosed amount. Worth around $1.8 billion at list prices, it was the first direct 737 MAX purchase from Boeing by DAE, which had until now been buying jets from existing customers and leasing them back, the manufacturer said. The top-selling 737 MAX only returned to the skies late last year after being grounded for 20 months following two fatal crashes. But carriers this month pulled a number of individual aircraft from service over potential electrical faults, including 30 at Southwest Airlines, 16 at United, and 17 at American Airlines. All three U.S. carriers still have MAX planes in their fleet not affected by the issue. DAE Chief Executive Firoz Tarapore said in the Boeing statement that his firm is confident in the success of these aircraft.
Big tech was taking over your life through smartphones. It may be coming for your car next as Chinese firms lead a stampede into auto manufacturing in their battle for more consumers. In recent weeks, Chinese smartphone giants Huawei and Xiaomi, e-commerce leader Alibaba, and even DJI, the world's top drone manufacturer, have thrown their hats into the ring. Take a look.
那我们觉得这样的竞争是一件好事，会大大加快这个创新的这个速度啊。我们是欢迎新的这个竞争的对手，我们把它叫做竞争队友啊。我们希望他们能加入进来，就像 Tesla 这样的公司，我觉得都是非常的，都对这个行业是有好处的。当然。
Business. I think this is very reassuring because they know what they are doing and they consider that there is an opportunity for them in this activity, which means that this industry has still a very bright future. And that's very positive. That's the first point. Second,
cars are the next major prize in the battle for digital territory, industry insiders say. And the deep pockets and data muscle of big Chinese tech firms will fuel even faster growth in smart electric vehicles and possibly hasten the arrival of autonomous cars. The first major auto industry gathering of the year opens to the public Wednesday with the global sector looking to China, the world's biggest and most rapidly electrifying auto market, to lead the way into a post-pandemic future. Sales in China contracted 2% to 25.1 million vehicles last year, nearly one-third of the global total, but are rapidly recovering thanks to the expanding popularity of electric cars. Just a tiny fraction of Chinese sales until recently, EVs accounted for around 9% in March, according to official figures. China's government expects new energy vehicles, which integrate the most advanced driving technology, to comprise 25% of car sales by 2025, and recent announcements appear to bode well. Xiaomi, which has rapidly become one of the world's biggest smartphone suppliers, plans to invest $10 billion over the next decade in a smart EV subsidiary, and Huawei will also invest $1 billion this year. Alibaba's autonomous driving unit, Auto X, has partnered with Japan's Honda to ramp up testing on Chinese roads. Autonomous driving remains largely in the testing phase, but China is widely expected to take the lead thanks to the government encouragement, modern infrastructure, and a head start in deploying necessary 5G networks.
Meanwhile, the Russia's space agency said Tuesday it hoped to launch its own orbital station in 2025 as Moscow considers withdrawing from the International Space Station program and go solo. Take a look. Roscosmos chief Dmitry Rogozin said work had begun on the first module of a new station after officials warned that Russia was considering pulling out of the ISS, one of the few successful examples of cooperation with the West. The first module of the new Russian orbital station is in the works, Rogozin said in a statement on the messaging app Telegram. He said Russia's Energia Space Corporation was aiming to have the module ready for launch in 2025 and released a video of Energia staff at work. Launched in 1998 and involving Russia, the United States, Canada, Japan, and the European Space Agency, the ISS is one of the most ambitious international collaborations in human history. Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov said in recent days that Moscow was considering whether to leave the ISS program from 2025 because of the station's age. Roscosmos said on Monday that a decision on quitting the ISS had not yet been made.
To other news now, an Indian railway worker has been hailed a superhero after he sprinted more than 30 meters along a track to grab a boy from the path of an express train. Take a look. Now, CCTV images of Mayor Shelke's incredible rescue have gone viral on social media, with many lauding this selfless 30-year-old. The 6-year-old boy was with his partially sighted mother on Saturday at Bangani Station, about 70 kilometers, about 42 miles east of Mumbai, when he fell off the platform edge onto the track. As we see there, Shelke was alerted by cries for help from the mother and immediately started running along the track. Now he is seen in these images released by the Indian Central Railways, grabbing the boy, throwing him back onto the platform, and then climbing up himself barely 2 seconds before the express train thundered through. Fatal accidents are common on India's vast but often dilapidated railway network. Social media users called Shelke, whose job as a pointsman is to check the train signals, a superhero. Railway Minister Piyush Goyal said Shelke would be rewarded for motivating humanity with his work.
And now the Curry brothers, Steph and Seth, faced off, where the elder Curry recorded his 11th straight game with 30-plus points to lift the Golden State Warriors to victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. Plus, Zion Williamson played his first NBA game at the world's famous arena, Madison Square Garden. Denny Sumagi of our ABC New York bureau has those stories. Denny.
Can't get out of my...
The Curry brothers faced off Monday night in the city of brotherly love, where the elder Curry, Steph, capped the night with a 49-point performance, including 10 threes from downtown, to give the Warriors the win over Seth and the Philadelphia 76ers.
We clawed our way back into the game and gave ourselves some life, so that was good after that 12-0 start, and then just scrap the rest of the way. And obviously, if there's time left and me and Draymond in a pick and roll, good things happen. My first game as a freshman, I had 13 turnovers, and he left me out there to work through it. And that was the first time I heard that term, and I just can't get it out of my head. So it's a lifestyle. You make mistakes, you keep it moving. Keep your confidence. Never doubt yourself. Just got to figure it out. This streak, I'm obviously aware, but it's you don't put too much pressure on yourself. You just play basketball. I think for the first time in that third quarter, I started to press a little bit down the stretch, and they started to pick up the intensity on the ball and rushed a couple shots. But for the most part, I've just settled into just having fun. You know, being aggressive, obviously, but kind of letting the game come to you. And for me, that looks a certain type of way, but I'm having a blast out there just playing basketball, and it's obviously working.
It's the same thing after every game. It's just utter amazement at this guy's skill level, heart, mind, focus. It's just amazing to watch.
In other NBA news, 3 years ago, so much hype surrounded Zion Williamson, where Knicks fans were hoping that they would choose the #1 overall draft pick in the 2018 draft. Williamson went on to go to New Orleans, and the Pelicans forward made his NBA debut in the world's famous arena, capping off with 34 points Sunday afternoon.
Well, what a fun story there. Thank you so much, Jenny. I still cannot get over the superhero of India.
True. Yes, I thought you cannot get over Steph Curry.
I will never get over Steph Curry. Well, that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join us again tomorrow. I'm CJ Hero.
There are always heroes in our midst. Thank you, CJ, for keeping me company. And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live
in interesting times.
Wala akong pake sa sinasabi ng iba. Importante ay mas iba ka sa kanila. Biglang switch na career, C-N-E-R-D-I-E. Pag ako nag-hit, napakalit. Marami na sa akin ang